The spaceship tore through the Earth's atmosphere, a fiery scar against the twilight sky. Xyla, weary from battle and yearning for peace, braced for impact. His crash landing was more violent than he had anticipated, metal screaming against the Earth, but he emerged, bruised but alive. He looked out at the rolling fields, a sense of calm washing over him. This was it. This was home. Xyla, with his emerald skin and sharp, angular features, was an imposing figure. But his eyes, usually burning with the fires of 1,000 battles, now held a flicker of hope. He buried his ship, a silent promise to his past, and set about building a new life. He found an abandoned farmstead, its wooden bones creaking with age, and started to learn the rhythms of the land. He planted seeds, coaxed life from the soil, and watched in wonder as the cycle of nature unfolded before him. He was no longer Xyla the Destroyer, the scourge of galaxies. The days turned into weeks, then months. Xyla, his hands calloused but strong, settled into his new life. He learned the language of the earth, the whisper of the wind through the cornfields, the rustling of leaves in the ancient oak that stood sentinel over his farm. He learned the language of the animals, the soft lowing of the cows, the playful barking of the farm dog he had befriended. He found a quiet joy in the simplicity of his existence. He woke with the sun, worked until his muscles ached, and fell asleep under a blanket of stars. The memories of war, the screams, and the bloodshed faded to a distant echo. He was content, something he had not thought possible after the horrors he had witnessed. The cows, in particular, fascinated him. Their gentle nature, their placid gaze, mirrored the peace he had found on earth. He spent hours in their company, talking to them, sharing his hopes and fears. He felt a connection, a kinship with these creatures that shared his home. The whispers started subtly, like the rustle of leaves in a gentle breeze. Xyla would catch Bess staring at him, her large brown eyes seeming to hold a depth of understanding he had never noticed before. Other cows began exhibiting similar behavior, their mooing taking on a strange cadence, almost as if they were trying to form words. He started finding strange patterns in the fields, intricate designs formed by flattened crops. At first he thought it was the work of animals, or perhaps the wind playing tricks. But the patterns were too deliberate, too precise. They spoke of intelligence, of communication. His initial amusement gave way to a sense of wonder, then a growing unease. One evening, as he was reading by the light of his kerosene lamp, he heard a knock at the door. It was his closest neighbor, Old Man Hemlock, his face etched with worry. "Strange lights in the sky, Xyla," he mumbled, his voice trembling. "And the cows, they're talking." Xyla's heart pounded in his chest. He had tried to convince himself that he was imagining things, that the stress of his past was playing tricks on him. But Hemlock's words, spoken with such fear and conviction, shattered his denial. The silence of that night was shattered by the roar of engines and the blinding glare of floodlights. Xyla watched in horror as black SUVs swarmed his property. Men in black suits pouring out, their faces grim and unyielding. They had come for his cows. He knew instinctively that he couldn't let them take them. These weren't just animals, they were his family, his responsibility. He had vowed to protect them, even if it meant revealing his true nature to a world that wouldn't understand. He stepped out into the open, his imposing figure silhouetted against the harsh lights. "Leave them be," he commanded, his voice low and guttural, the words strangely accented but understandable. "They are under my protection." The men in black hesitated, taken aback by his sudden appearance. "Sir, we're here on official business," one of them said, his tone wary. "These animals are exhibiting unusual behavior. We need to take them for observation." "Observation!" Xyla scoffed. "You would lock them away, dissect them, try to understand something you were never meant to." The standoff was tense, the air thick with suspicion and fear. Xyla could feel the weight of their gazes upon him, their eyes scanning him, trying to decipher the enigma he presented. He knew his appearance, his strange accent, his fierce protectiveness over a few cows only fueled their suspicions. "Sir, please step aside," the agent said, his hand hovering near his holstered weapon. "We don't want to make this difficult." "You have already made it difficult," Xyla countered, his voice like gravel. He could feel the familiar surge of adrenaline, the battle instincts he had tried so hard to bury, rising within him. But this was not a battle he could win with force. He had to appeal to something else, something they could understand. "These creatures," he said, his voice softening, "they are not harming anyone. They are different, yes, but they are intelligent, sentient. They deserve your respect, your protection." He looked at each of the men in turn, his gaze unwavering. "Would you condemn them for something they cannot control? Would you punish them for their intelligence?" The men in black eventually retreated, their departure as sudden and unsettling as their arrival. But Zyla knew this was far from over. They would be back, he had no doubt, armed with warrants and reinforcements. And next time he might not be so lucky. He spent the following days reinforcing his defenses, his warrior instincts kicking in. He used his advanced technology, salvaged from the wreckage of his ship, to create a perimeter around the farm, an invisible shield to protect his newfound family. The cows, seemingly aware of the danger, stuck close to the barn. Their mooing, once soothing, now held an undercurrent of anxiety. Even Bess, usually so calm and collected, seemed agitated, her large eyes reflecting the fear that gnawed at Zyla's heart. The government agents returned, as Zyla knew they would. This time, they came armed with more than just guns and suspicion. They brought scientists, their eyes wide with curiosity and apprehension, eager to study the phenomenon that was unfolding on Zyla's farm. The standoff resumed, but this time there was a glimmer of hope. The scientists, unlike the agents, were open to the possibility that something extraordinary was happening. They approached the cows with caution, not as specimens to be dissected, but as intelligent beings to be understood. Zyla watched with a mixture of hope and trepidation as the scientists interacted with the cows. He saw the surprise on their faces as the cows responded to their questions, not with mooing but with complex hand gestures and even rudimentary words. The barrier of language, once insurmountable, was slowly being dismantled. The news of the intelligent cows spread like wildfire, igniting a media frenzy that threatened to engulf Zyla's peaceful existence. Reporters camped outside his farm, their cameras flashing, their microphones thrust in his face, demanding answers he was reluctant to give. He knew the world wasn't ready for the truth, not entirely. He had seen firsthand the fear and prejudice that could erupt when faced with the unknown. He had fought in wars sparked by such ignorance, and he refused to let his cows become casualties in a battle they didn't understand. He chose to reveal his own story, his alien origin, in a controlled way, through a trusted journalist. He spoke of his war-torn past, his longing for peace, his astonishment at finding it in the most unexpected of places. He spoke of the cows not as alien experiments, but as intelligent beings who had shown him the true meaning of kinship and compassion. The world, it turned out, was more ready for change than he had dared to believe. The initial fear and skepticism gave way to curiosity, then admiration, then acceptance. People came from far and wide to witness the phenomenon of the intelligent cows, to learn from them, to connect with them. Zyla's farm became a sanctuary, not just for him and his cows, but for a world weary of conflict and division. It was a place where humans and animals could interact as equals, where intelligence was celebrated in all its forms, where the echoes of war were drowned out by the laughter of children and the gentle mooing of cows. As he stood on his porch, watching the sun set over his fields, casting long shadows across the land, Zyla felt a sense of peace he had never thought possible. He had come to Earth seeking refuge, and had found a family, a purpose, a home. He had come as a warrior, and had left as a farmer, his heart filled with the quiet joy of a life well lived. The future was uncertain, as it always was, but tonight, under the watchful gaze of 1,000 stars, hope bloomed eternal.